Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben and this is the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Hey family, I hope you're well wherever you are and you got that thin blue smoke rolling. This episode is part of my US road trip series where I travel through several states competing at the Houston World's Barbecue Championships and learning as much about barbecue as possible. The trip starts in Texas before going across to Louisiana and then up into Arkansas. It was a hell of a trip and I'm so excited to be able to share it with you. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to come join us at the Smoking Hot Confessions community on Facebook. It's a great place to continue the conversation. Also, make sure you get your free copy of my ebook, 27 Lessons Learned from Competition Barbecue. Jump on over to smokinghotconfessions.com/ebooks to get your copy now. Finally, however you listen to this episode, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. This will really help me spread that barbecue love. So, there are few barbecue joints that have a lineage like Salt Lick. In this case, the barbecue joint in question has been passed through 3 generations, and the family itself can trace their barbecue origins all the way back to the Wild West in the days of wagon trains and cowboys. As part of our trip, we headed out to their original location in Driftwood, Texas, on the family's 500-acre ranch. Miriam, the Chief Operations Officer, and Johnny and Shane, resident Pitmasters, took us on a guided tour of virtually every inch of the place, including the old family mansion. And the food just kept coming, and every bite was better than the one before. So tune in now as Miriam takes us through the history of Salt Lick and schools us on some of the finer points of working with beef.
This is the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with your host, Ben Arnott. How long's it been since your last confession?
A key player in the barbecue scene is Clean Heat Charcoal. Whether it's sponsoring festivals, supporting teams, or supplying the fuel for your backyard cookouts, Abel and his team work tirelessly to bring you the best barbecue experience. Their charcoal burns hot and it burns long. Clean Heat Charcoal embraces their global responsibilities as an industry leader, and all of their products are 100% natural, sustainable, and eco-friendly. The charcoal is made from an invasive species that is destroying valuable farmland in Namibia, and they offer locals employment opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. Whether it's cooking burgers in your backyard or saving the planet, you can rest assured knowing it's made with Clean Heat. Clean Heat Charcoal is available all around Australia and will be hitting the US shortly. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to learn more. Miriam, thanks for taking the time out to meet with me today, and welcome to the confessional.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And how have you been since I last saw you?
Well, I've been pretty busy, as always. Restaurants keep you on your toes.
I would imagine that they certainly do. I can imagine as much.
Yeah, with springtime upon us here in Texas, and things warming up, people begin to move and enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, I'll bet. I can imagine, and you've got a great spot there for people that do want to go and eat some barbecue outdoors.
Absolutely.
So one thing that I'm learning a lot about restaurateurs is that they don't tend to cook barbecue at home for themselves. Is this the case for you?
Well, I would probably say that I don't eat or cook quite as much smoked meat, since that's, pretty much my profession. But I do like to grill, and I especially like the green egg. I don't know if you've ever heard of that type of grill.
I certainly have, the big green egg.
Yes. So, I play around with that, in my spare time.
Oh, fantastic. So what was the last thing that you put on the big green egg?
Actually, barbecue chicken. It cooks really well and really slow, and it makes it very moist and tender. It's yummy.
Ah, very interesting. Now, do you like to put a thick, dark barbecue sauce on that when you cook it?
No, actually, I'm not much of a deep, dark red barbecue sauce person, because really, if it's tomato-based, you don't get to cook with it during the cooking process, because you can only add it at the end, because tomatoes burn. And that's where some people make mistakes.
Ah, I see. Of course, yeah, because tomatoes are high sugar content.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. All right, so were you born into a barbecue family there in Texas? How did you get into it?
Well, I actually was in development part of a company for like 18 years. I don't know if you've ever heard of the company called Schlotsky's Deli.
I have heard that name, yes.
Yeah, and, I had 52 locations in my territory, and I pretty much started out in the legal department and worked my way through to operations. And so I guess that's what attracted the Salt Lick to me, because they were growing so rapidly. Mr. Roberts felt that, he needed to bring someone on that, could handle high volume. So I decided to make a change after all that time, because I was traveling so much and I wasn't home very much. And so I felt like that would make things better for my life and for my family.
Yeah, absolutely. With 52 locations, you got to visit one per week. You'd never be home.
Oh, yeah. And pretty much during that time, we were building. And so, you pretty much have to hold an owner's hand, for at least the first 6 months. It's kind of hard, at the time, because, they were allowing franchise to folks who really didn't have food service business. So that was even harder at the time.
I see. Yeah, I have a little bit of experience working in some franchise food companies myself, so I can certainly understand what you're saying there.
Yeah. Okay.
So, how many locations does Salt Lick have now?
We have 2 airport locations, one in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. We have Austin, which is called ABIA, Austin Bergstrom. We have a location in Round Rock, Texas, a full-service restaurant, and then, of course, we have the Salt Lick on our 500-acre property. Okay,
what's that, about a half a dozen then?
4. And that pretty much has all happened in the last 3, probably in the last 9 years.
Okay, so pretty consistent growth there then.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So what can you tell me about the history of Salt Lick?
Well, it's pretty much a family barbecue love story. I mean, pretty much the Roberts family settled in Driftwood in the 1870s, and pretty much progressed from there. The family kind of began in North Carolina in 1847, where Mr. Roberts' great-grandfather was born, and then they moved along the way seeking land and property to, for their family to grow and raise grains and animals. And so basically in 1956, they bought a 580-acre ranch and pretty much proceeded from that time to grow, pecans and work the ranch and farm it with grain and vegetables, and they raised cows and sheep. And at the time, they provided some small local grocery stores with fresh produce and that sort of thing. So, along the way, it just prospered and grew, and the family grew, and more family moved to the area. And then, of course, Mr. Roberts, at the time, Mr. Thurman, he was a bridge subcontractor during the war, and he actually was traveling quite a bit, building bridges and all kinds of things. And he actually met Mrs. Roberts in Hawaii when he was working through a contract with the military. And so, believe it or not, they got married, and he brought her back to Driftwood, Texas. And so, she became a part of the family, and they had 2 kids at the time. And so he decided that, during that time he was away all during the week and he was only home on the weekends. And, when you have a ranch and you have family all around, he just truly felt like he was missing out on the family life, probably what you and I were just talking about. And so he decided that, he needed to figure something out that he could do to make a living, because he was doing very well for himself with the job that he had. So he sat down with his wife and his family, and he wrote down 54 things that he thought that they could possibly do so that they could stay in Driftwood and live on the ranch. And believe it or not, the Salt Lick restaurant idea was number 14 on that list.
Huh.
I know, that's hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it started out that Mr. Roberts would, he would cook. There was a place near the ranch. It's called Camp Ben McCullough. And it was a park that people would come on the weekends and camp out and swim by the creek, obviously, that flows through our property, which is called Onion Creek. And so he kind of got known for cooking barbecue. So that's where the idea came up of like, well, maybe I could make a living and provide for my family by cooking barbecue. So during that time, 100 years after the family traveled across the country to come to Texas, basically in 1967, we started serving food to the first customers on the weekend. And it was kind of like there was no electricity, there was no running water, there was no phone. He basically would bring meats in on a Thursday. He would sleep on a cot outside, and he would just cook barbecue. And people would come, and they would tailgate, or they would sit on their trucks, and they would cook for the weekend until it was gone, and then the same process started over and over. So after a couple of years, he added electricity so that he could string up lights so that, if people came, late in the evening, they would have light. And say 2 years after that, he provided running water, and a couple of years after that, we finally got restrooms. So basically, he went out in the middle of the ranch, and he took a fork, like a long barbecue cooking fork, and he drew a circle. He just stood with the kids, and he drew a circle. And he went, this is where we're going to build the pit, and this is going to be our new family business. So for over 50 years, that pit still exists, and I think, when you were in our restaurant, you saw it. It's hand-built from the stone, from the quarry, from the creek, and it is we still use it every day for our cooking process.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful pits I've seen around. It's incredible. It's a real eye opener and a real show stealer. And believe it or not, we are the only place in the state of Texas as of 2018 that has an actual live open fire pit inside their restaurant. I'll bet, yeah. Well, the local councils and things would make things like that a bit difficult over here, so I'm a bit jealous that you're able to do that. Since the Salt Lick consists of Driftwood, Texas, I think they're a little more lenient for us. But, there's lots of fire codes and guidelines that we have to follow. The fire is contained, so... Absolutely, yeah. So just on the topic of pits, can you give me a run-through of the pits that you're running there?
Okay, well, of course, we have our live fire open pit that is fed by live oak wood. We also carry old hickory pits, which are a combination of I would describe it as a large black box. It's a rotisserie pit that will hold, that has like 15 racks that keeps the meats moving and, the juices flowing. So nothing is lost. All the flavor is contained. And those also are fed by live oak. We do not do any type of chemicals, gas, or fire starters or anything.
Wow! So you even run even the old hickories run on just pure sticks.
Yes.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's a process. It's labor intensive, but the end product, I guess, would speak for itself.
It absolutely does, without a doubt. All right, so one of the things that I'm great at is cyber stalking, and from my research, looking at your website and all that sort of information there, Salt Lick is from the Hill Country, which is known for its German influence on barbecue, which is commonly associated with Central Texas barbecue, yet you cook on open fires, which is known to be associated with West Texas barbecue, and you offer meats both chopped and sliced, where chopped is associated with East Texas barbecue. So obviously you fuse styles there at Salt Lick?
I don't want to say we are picking up on any other traditions in, like East, West, so to speak. Everybody has like their own technique. I mean, we pretty much have a large operation, and we don't, our chopped beef is not from trimmings or from end parts. It is directly straight from the brisket, whereas in other areas, sometimes people compare chopped beef with it was what was left over. So that's what separates us from that aspect.
Ah, gotcha.
West Texas would be more of, they cook more in smaller quantities or boxes that are closed to do larger amounts of meat, but they also specialize in things like cabrito, lamb, wild boar, which is more of like a open spit, or grate, so to speak. And we focus more just on the beef proteins. I mean, does that make sense? Or
absolutely. Now, one thing that I did have when I was there that I absolutely just enjoyed eating like crazy was the turkey. Now, that's something that we don't do a lot of in Australia, but because I'm married to an American, I have to do a turkey every Thanksgiving. So what advice do you have for people barbecuing a turkey?
Well, on turkeys, especially if you're not going to go from fresh. Now, we use fresh versus on an average Thanksgiving, you will probably have used a frozen product. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So basically what you want to do to contain that moisture, and especially if you're going to smoke a turkey, because with poultry you have to be real careful that you do not take all the moisture away from it. And that's probably one of the bigger things that you have with poultry. If you overcook it, it's too dry. So basically what we do is we marinate 24 hour, you would thaw it out and you choose a marinade, which sometimes you can just do salt and water. If you want to do a different flavor, some people use a little sugar or whatever, but we marinate that turkey breast. And what it does is it gives it extra moisture. And then what we do is we don't add any of the dry rubs or anything much to the outside because, again, if you're using salt, you don't want to draw the moisture out. And so basically we slow smoke it, and then we baste it, of course, with a sauce that you would want to use something that is not a tomato base because you can't cook through the cooking process. You would only be able to add the sauce 30 minutes out of the last part of the cooking process. So if you're, I always advise people do a butter basting or do a citrus sort of sauce that will caramelize on the outside of that skin and make it very crispy. And from marinating it 24 hours prior to smoking it, it will hold the moisture and it will be so juicy.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Quick question though. If we're worried about the sugar in the tomato with the base, wouldn't the citrus have the same issue? Like if I was using orange or something?
No, what? It's not the sugar that is burning from the barbecue sauce. It's the tomatoes, the acidic from the tomatoes, plus the sugar together burns on top of your meat, and it will make it taste very bitter. Whereas if you just use something just to glaze it versus basting it, that would be the difference between a tomato-based sauce, like a deep red sauce that you asked me about, or, anything that is made with tomatoes does not work for slow smoking.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. All right, so you mentioned before that that Salt Lick has been growing. What's coming up in the future?
Well, we are looking to expand in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We've really been looking at that the past 12 months. Obviously, it's in the discussion stage and looking at, do we want to build a Salt Lick, probably like a 400, 500-seater full-service restaurant in the Metroplex. We're also, we have changed a lot of our pastures and grazing lands that were used for cattle. We are now making those into vineyards, and so we're really expanding in the vineyard and expanding of having, our own wines for retail. So that's on tap, and then we're, our catering department continues to grow with all of our special venues on the property, and we also are expanding, our mail order. So, we've got a lot going on in every department.
Yeah, mail order sounds fascinating. What's involved with that?
Well, we offer our foods, our meats and our proteins and our sauces and dry rubs online, and we ship throughout the United States. To give you an idea of from Thanksgiving until Christmas Day, we can easily average 11,000 briskets.
Wow, 11,000.
If that tells you anything about how large our mail order. Now, our briskets are frozen, and we ship 1 or 2 days. We don't do anything over 2 days because, we don't want to use, dry ice or anything like that could, cause a problem with the packaging. And it's frozen. It's a frozen product, and we ship it out, and we have all kinds of packages that are available. You can order turkey breast, you can order briskets, you can order beef ribs, you can order pork ribs, and then sausage. Our smoked sausage is also for sale online. So we have an amazing mail order department, and that is what keeps Johnny busy.
Well, idle hands are the devil's playthings, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Right, yeah.
This is Jesse with Seven Sins Barbecue, and you're listening to Smoking Hot Confessions.
Make no mistake, beef is king. Ask any competitor on the circuit, and the trophy they want most of all is the brisket. And you won't find better brisket than Black Angus Reserve. Black Angus Reserve is the leading brisket brand in Australia, and it's easy to see why. It's verified Black Angus, which has been grain-fed for a minimum of 150 days with a deliciously high marbling content. These briskets are so good that Black Angus Reserve are willing to put their money where their mouth is. They sponsor multiple Grand Champion winning team Manning Valley Natural Smokers, who've won many trophies using their briskets. Not just that, but Manning Valley took these briskets to the World's Barbecue Championships in Houston and took out second place in the world. To get yours, hit up their Black Angus Reserve page on Facebook now. And we're back. All right, so after eating at your restaurant there's an elephant in the room we have to address. Well, it's almost an elephant. It's a bison, something I'm yet to see on any other menu anywhere. How is bison different from beef?
Well, from the bison that we have that we offer the ribs, it is a much leaner and cleaner protein than your regular beef rib that, pretty much is, the rib cage surrounded by fats, which beef ribs tend to, you have to cook them longer to, for them to be tender enough to eat, where bison doesn't take quite as long of the process, but it's just a leaner meat, and people are, especially Austin, are drawn to, if I'm going to have red meat, I would like for it to be a leaner type of meat. So that's how that came about.
Oh, that's interesting. So aside from being leaner, is the actual flavor much different to the beef?
I would say it beef ribs have a distinct flavor just because of the fat content that gives it. To me, it's not it. If anybody understands the word kind of gamey, such as if you were eating venison or that type of meat, sometimes if it's not properly processed, it will just have this distinct gamey taste. And bison does not have that. And it's I don't want to if you're not a red meat eater, but it's a nice lean cut of meat. And you can do a lot of nice things. I know, bison burgers have become, very popular here in the United States. And it's, it was like everyone was choosing lamb at the time and mixing with beef. But now it seems like bison has really become the more healthier red meat.
Very interesting. A bison burger. What goes on a bison burger?
Well, just like if you were making a homemade hamburger patty, some people mix, 50-50 or 70-30, with hamburger and bison. So it's not as, it doesn't have a high fat content, basically.
Yeah, great. All right, so circling back to beef then, because that's what I was wanting to get into in this segment. What's your personal favorite cut of beef to cook?
For me personally, or for the salt lick? For me personally, I would say, you can't go wrong with a filet, a nice steak.
Oh, yeah, very nice. And how do you like to cook your steak?
Medium rare. Do
you reverse sear it or just direct grill it there on your big green egg?
I do it directly on the green egg because, you can really sear. You can get the green egg like up to 1,000 degrees.
Whew, wow.
Yeah. You want to sear on the outside and then, you cook just a little longer to reach your medium or your rare or well done. But if you sear on the outside, it holds the moisture on the inside.
Yeah, very nice. Oh, I'm getting hungry.
I know.
So one of the very interesting things that you told me when I was there and you were giving me that tour of the restaurant was that you do 100,000 briskets every year. Now, that's an awful lot of cow. Where does your beef come from?
Well, we actually have a food purveyor that, it comes throughout the whole United States. And when we purchase, we pretty much will do a buyout. Now, sometimes the purveyors that we have our contacts with, they don't want to give out all their true places of where you receive their beef, where they get their beef, but we bid on huge, 18-wheeler buyouts, and then we have a purveyor that holds that for us. But most of the product comes within the United States.
Wow. So when you say a buyout, do you mean that you literally buy all the stock that they have available?
It's like working the stock market. You know, it's like you have all these people that reach out, and basically what we do is we just don't buy to buy because it's cheaper. If it's higher, we purchase the type, you know, we want natural Angus beef, and we purchase anything from 14 pounds higher. So, of course, you know, I mean, I have to give it to Mr. Roberts. It's not about the cost, it's about the quality. And, you know, you pretty much pay for what you get these days. And so what we do is we say we want to purchase, you know, X amount of briskets, and we it's kind of it can almost be like a bidding war back and forth because, you know, lots of folks want to be on our vendor list, as you can suspect. And so, you know, we usually stick with the same. I mean, we've stuck with the same person for like 10 years because we know that we're going to receive the best of the best. And, you know, we have a special cut that we ask for. And so that purveyor will only provide, you know, like to us for that special order. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, of course we use, you know, we can use easily 400 briskets, especially in the summertime, a day. And so, you know, the demand is there. And of course, when the holidays roll around, we have to make sure that we've, you know, got those extra 11,000 briskets that we need to put out for mail order. So we're constantly making bids, and we're constantly receiving buyouts.
God, that's incredible. I can't even wrap my head around those numbers.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's amazing. I mean, you know, when you have over 600,000 customers a year, you can imagine. And we're just talking about brisket. We're not talking about all the other products that we have also. But brisket is one of the main ones that we really, Mr. Roberts is totally focused on the proteins. And, you know, that's what he takes care of. And he's the one that does the buyout. He will pretty much let me play around with the ribs and the chicken and the sausage, but the beef, he totally is focused on every day.
Wow. So Mr. Roberts, the founder, is still involved with the business today?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. He has been very active in the restaurant since his father passed away in 1981. And then his mother, who was 104, just passed away like 3 months ago. And so he pretty much stepped in, you know, for his dad, and him and his mother ran the restaurant until obviously, you know, she became older and was not able to work in the restaurant every day. But up until about, I want to say 10, 11 years ago, she was in the restaurant every day too.
Wow, that'd put her, 93, 94. That's an incredible innings.
Yes.
All right, so just circling back, because I took us off on a bit of a tangent there. What is it that makes Texan beef unique?
Well, Texas beef, of course, most people relate Texas to cattle, and people have a love for red meat in Texas, probably more so than other than, you know, the Midwest. I mean, that's basically was the food source for a very long time. And so, you know, everybody thrives and has in their mind that Texans are very large meat eaters. Would you agree?
Yes, that is the impression that I got when I was there.
And, you know, it's places that still continue to, you know, take the long processed cooking ways are the places that, attract people so much because, now you have fast food, you have frozen product, you have product or beef that is processed in microwaves and in ovens, and as you know, there is a big difference in quality and taste and flavor.
Absolutely.
So I feel like that's what makes us at the top of kind of the beef capital of the world.
Definitely the beef capital of the world. Absolutely. So, do you have a preference for grain or grass fed?
Probably grass fed.
Why is that?
I think instead of an animal that can graze and process their foods and cleanse their intakes, they have to have some grains. But I think a grass-fed animal has better flavor. Just
like a more naturally beefy sort of taste to it?
Yeah. They need to be able to eat natural as well as have some grains, such as, Spain and the pig. They feed their pigs acorns the last 3 months of their lives before they're slaughtered, and you can actually taste the nutty flavor. So whatever food your animal is putting into their bodies, that is going to affect the quality of the taste and the buildup of the muscle of the animal.
Yeah, fascinating. So is it fair to say then that it's grass for flavor and grain for the fat content?
Yes. A combination. Of course, in the winter months when they can't graze, you have to supplement grain. But I think most places now that describe their proteins, it just says, even such as poultry, is they're pasture free. They're not contained in a crate, and most of them, their feet have never even touched the ground. So that is just mass production of quantity and not quality.
Yeah, for sure. We there's quite a movement happening here in Australia at the moment as well, sort of heading away from that sort of that battery farming approach and heading more towards, back to the way we used to do it with the paddock to plate type movement, which is quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, pretty much so. And if you've been in the food business for a while, or even when you go out to eat, I mean, there's just different cuts of meat or product that you're eating that is better than others. I've been doing it so long, I can almost tell if they're advertising something that they truly don't have.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, I've got another off on a tangent question for you.
Okay.
When I was at the restaurant there, you had pecan pie, chocolate pecan pie, blackberry cobbler, peach cobbler, and pie and ice cream. And you can probably guess I've got a bit of a sweet tooth, given that I paid that much attention to that part of the menu. Which, in your opinion, is the best match with brisket and why?
Oh, my goodness. That's a really hard question because we have two of the most favorite things that you can find in Texas, and that is cobbler and that is pecan pie. So, I guess it really depends on the person. If you love nuts, pecan pie is the way to go. If you love fruits, then the blackberry and the peach, it's just really hard to say. I mean, we used to grow peaches on the ranch. We had peach trees, and so that's where we actually got involved with the peach. But then Mrs. Roberts, really liked to pick blackberries, actually like wild blackberries, that would grow on vines, and so that's how that came about. But all four of those, there's the chocolate lover, so then we decided, okay, we'll sprinkle a little chocolate chips on the pecan pie. Well, it took off. And so it's like we have not had to add another dessert in I want to say I don't think there's been any changes in the last 12 years.
Oh, wow. My taste buds are dancing at the idea of a wild blackberry cobbler.
Right, and we actually use Texas pecans. They come within the state of Texas that we purchase from a grower. Because, again, when you toured our property, you saw all the pecan trees that were planted down and around by the creek. And Mr. and Mrs. Roberts actually used to sell pecans and shell them for folks so that they would have pecans to use, like for Christmas when they're doing all of their baking and making candies. So that's how the pecans came about at the Salt Lick also. But it's a pecan pie is a big Texas thing.
Yeah, definitely. I saw it on the menu in tons of places. It's definitely seems to be one of the staples.
Yeah, and, we make ours, of course, a little different than your normal pecan pie. It's more of a kind of a custard on the inside, and, we've got this, it's not totally a secret, but we've got like a very different filling than most average pecan pie recipes. So that's kind of what separates our pies, and also with it being homemade, handmade crust, that separates us from the average restaurant because we do not purchase our pie crust or our pies. They're made from scratch daily.
They were so good too.
And then you just put that amazing vanilla ice cream on top, and it just takes it to a whole nother level.
You're not going to now tell me that you make the vanilla ice cream too?
No, there will be. We're not quite in the ice cream at this point, but everything else is homemade for sure.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, what would be your 3 top tips for cooking Texas barbecue for the listeners?
Well, first of all, it's like any chef or any home cook. There has to be a passion for whatever you're cooking or making. And then you have to learn to be extremely patient. And last but not least, you have to know how to sit back and enjoy your end results and when everyone is eating it. It's just that love. It's the love, it's the passion, and it's the patience.
Got a project you'd like to work on with the SHC team? Shoot Ben an email on ben@smokinghotconfessions.com and let's have a conversation.
There's no arguing that Low and Slow Barbecue is the hottest thing on the foodie scene right now. And if you've just opened up a new barbecue business or are thinking of doing so, you better listen up. Word of mouth can sink your fledgling barbecue empire before you've had a chance to get the last brisket out of the smoker. Serve bad barbecue within the barbecue community and the whole scene is going to hear about it. You need a coach, a mentor, someone with competition barbecue, commercial kitchen and catering experience. You need Pitmaster Linda from Pit's Perfect Barbecue. Linda can help you with everything to do with smoking meat and more, such as menu options, advertising, minimizing wastage, pairing flavors, and even wood selection. Australia-wide, if you've got all the gear and no idea, reach out to Linda on her website at pitsperfectbbq.com. That's PITS perfectbbq.com. Alrighty, Miriam, we're back for segment 3 now. You've been very patient with me, giving me this time. Well, it's this morning for me, it's afternoon for you. We're in the lightning round now, so I'm going to ask 10 quick questions for a rapid-fire one-word or one-sentence answer. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Alrighty, so burnt ends, beef brisket or pork belly?
Beef brisket.
Chicken, breast wings or thighs?
Breast.
Blackberry or peach cobbler?
Both.
Ooh, good choice. Pork ribs, St. Louis, baby back or spare?
Baby back and spare.
When it comes to charcoal, do you prefer lump or briquettes?
Lump.
What's your least favorite type of barbecue? For example, a stick burner, charcoal, pellet, gas, electric?
Gas.
What's one tip or trick you wish you'd known sooner?
Patience.
When it comes to the future, what do you think is going to be the next trend in barbecue?
Boy, that's really hard to say. The next trend is, I think everyone is really trying to figure out how to make the smoke ring on any type of smoke rings larger, which it doesn't increase the flavor at all. But it seems like everyone is infatuated with the pink smoke ring, of how to achieve that in other ways than on direct heat. I don't know if you've noticed lately where they're cold smoking or doing cold smoke infusions to get that flavor, but it's actually not being done by heat. Do you understand that?
I certainly do. I have seen exactly what you're talking about.
I think the cold smoke is becoming more and more popular, or infusing a piece of meat in where the smoke is forced to penetrate it, whereas in a faster method instead of a slower method.
Very interesting. Okay, question number 9. What's one thing you'd do to change the face of barbecue?
I got to think about that one.
Alrighty, we can circle back to that. If there were a fantasy barbecue league, who'd be on your team?
Salt Lick.
And one thing you'd do to change the face of barbecue?
Present it more. Have it more. Enjoy it more. Play with it more.
Beautiful. Well, we're nearly done here, Miriam, so I'm going to hand control of the studio over to you. Please give some shout-outs to whomever you'd like and tell all the listeners how they can track you down.
Okay, I'd like to send some awesome shout-outs to all my loved ones in North Carolina. I'd like to send all my shout-outs to all of my barbecue friends out there who we share the love and the passion and the honor of the process. You can reach us at www.saltlickbbq, SALTLICKBBQ.com. Y'all come see us now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today, Miriam. I've really appreciated everything you've been able to share with me, and I know that the listeners have too.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor, and I so enjoyed your visit, and you will have to come back and see us really soon.
Well, family, thanks for stopping by. I'm sure you learned as much here as I did. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, and until next time, take care of each other and keep on queuing.
Thanks for listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com for recipes, tips, and Ben's own confessions.